Welcome to the Power of Design podcast, where we have inspiring conversations that explore the intersection of architecture, construction, and real estate, so we can understand the dynamics and trends that shape an exciting and powerful built environment. This is your host, Jack Osa. In today's episode of The Power of Design, I'm talking to a very smart and accomplished professional. Jennifer Warawa is the Chief Commercial Officer of DIRTT Environmental Solutions, a prefab construction company that is integrating sustainability, digital design, flexibility, and speed to market for the built environment. During our conversation, we talk about how to be a high-performance professional, new ways to execute interior design and construction projects, and much more. This is my conversation with Jennifer. Hey Jennifer, welcome to the Power of Design podcast. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Excellent.
Excellent.
Jennifer, you have an incredible professional history, creative, innovative sales and marketing programs that drive aggressive sales growth for technology-focused business. What do you think is the most important skill a person should have in order to become a high-performance professional?
Am I allowed to say more than one?
Sure.
Oh, good. Okay,
Yeah.
That's good. I think there's a few that are at the top of the list around what's most important when you're building a high performance, an individual or a culture or a team. And I think one of those is around learning agility. So it's your ability to learn new things, to assimilate new environments, to work in new conditions. So I think that learning agility is extremely important, and we've certainly all experienced that over the last year as
Sure.
we've learned how to adapt to a new world. And probably a close second is around your ability to take feedback and not look at it or listen to it with a critical ear, but to be able to just take it and say, how can I use this to make myself better? And I think those are two traits of high performers that help them get to that next level.
Yeah. Do you think agility can be taught?
That is a really great question. Yeah, I think when it comes to learning agility, I mean, previously I've been in roles with companies where one of the primary things that we looked for was people that knew what to do when they didn't know what to do.
Okay.
Just like you're in this unknown environment, there's no directions, there's no clear path. What are you going to do? And that's a good question: is can that agility be taught, and can people learn? I'd like to think yes. I would like to think yes.
Sure.
I mean, I think some people it comes more naturally to them than others, but I think being able to figure out what to do when you don't know what to do, I think it's something that you can learn.
Yeah. Some of the things that I realized based, talking about agility was, before I started podcasting, I always wanted to do this, but I was very self-conscious about my accent. I was like, man, nobody's gonna understand what I'm saying, and I'm more of an introvert, so I was having like a hard time like getting out there and talking to people. But because of those two reasons, I pushed myself to do it. And it's been, almost 2 years. This is episode 48. And I feel very agile mentally to have great conversations, which I was not 2 years ago.
That's amazing. There you go.
Yeah, I felt a great amount of progress in my own thinking, where, I feel very fast as when I'm having a conversation, getting ideas, getting feedback, understanding something and processing that, and then externalizing that in a coherent way.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it can be learned. I mean, I think if someone doesn't have the natural ability, they have to want to learn it. I don't think it's something you kind of force someone to.
Practice.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the other thing you mentioned about what was the second thing?
Taking feedback.
Yeah, taking feedback. So to me, that's self-awareness, where maybe you take things in a way where that they're helping your next step instead of hurting your feelings or taking things too personal.
I think there is a lot of that. I think that a lot of people take feedback very personally, and instead of finding out what can I do with what I just heard, it's more defensive, and they feel like it's almost a personal attack. And that's most of the time that is not the intention at all when people give you feedback. And so getting good at receiving feedback and leveraging that to better yourself is a huge step forward as it relates to being a high performing individual, I think.
Yeah, and I think part of that is where the feedback is coming from.
That's true too.
If you know that person cares about me, you might pay more attention to that. Because
That's
sometimes
true.
we get a lot of feedback that we didn't ask for.
Yeah, I think it's being able to hear the feedback, not get defensive, and then say, okay, well, half of what they said I agree with, and I take that. The other half, I'm taking it with a grain of salt. I'm not really going to take that too seriously, but at least being able to hear it all and then decide what you want to do with it is important.
Yeah, and implementing that feedback into your behavior or thinking on reactions the next time. I hear a good definition of self-awareness the other day when they say self-awareness is the ability to monitor your internal self in real time. So when you face a decision, you make decisions in a different way than your automatic self, because we tend to think and solve problems always the same way. But it's like having that internal conversation. You stop yourself and say, okay, I know you want to react this way, but how about we approach it this way next time?
Absolutely. That's a great way to look at it.
Interesting.
Very.
Tell me about yourself, Jennifer. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Kelowna, British Columbia, Canada.
Nice.
So yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful part of Canada for sure. A little chilly in the winter, but it was good.
And how was your childhood?
Good. It was good. Yeah, no, it was a smaller town. I don't know if you say it's a small town, but 100,000 people or less than 100,000 people. So that's a nice, it's a nice size. You could drive anywhere in 10 minutes. So it was, not the big city feel.
Yeah.
And just growing up in a great community and loved that. And always thought that was about the right size of town for me. And then I moved to Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, wow.
So that went from, 100,000 to just a little bit bigger. So it was, that was a whole different experience.
Yeah. So what did you do when you got to Atlanta?
Yeah, so I actually moved with the job that I had. I was working remotely in Kelowna for Sage Software, and I had the opportunity to move with the company to Atlanta, and it was a great opportunity. It was a great move, and just loved the whole experience.
Yeah.
Love
so
new
was that your first job?
No, before that I had a business.
Oh,
so
okay.
I was actually, I had
don't skip the important parts.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going right. I'm
Yeah.
like right. Oh, sorry, forgot about that. We'll
Tell
back
me
up.
about your business.
Yeah, so I actually I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. So both my mom and dad had businesses. So it was, and if you've had a parent that has a business, child labor is a real thing, and you end up everyone works in it, and you're all there on the weekends and after school, and so just you get a very entrepreneurial mindset and kind of this anything is possible, and you start to look at things in a different way. And so I ended up, I took accounting at college and ended up starting an accounting and consulting business. And it wasn't the accounting part that I loved. It was the ability to tell a story with the numbers. And I think that the numbers tell you, where you have opportunities, how your business is doing, the health of the business, and where you can go. And so I just had I had a real passion for telling the story that was hidden in the numbers, that sometimes people just talk about the numbers and that doesn't resonate. It just, people are like, their eyes glaze over and they're like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
And so I loved that. And so I did that, I did that for a number of years and was a Sage partner. So I would speak at their conferences around the same thing, leveraging your financial statements to be able to tell the story of your business and where you can do better. And then I had the opportunity to go and work with them. So I sold my business and went to check out the other side.
Wow, that's interesting.
It was. That was a big change too, going from,
What do you think was the biggest change in your day-to-day work?
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, most of my clients at that time were relatively local. I mean, we were all in the same time zone. You could drive to them. And then when I went, Sage is a global company. So then you start working, even though I was in a Canadian role, you're working with people across the country and you're working in a global structure, which is very different than when you have a business with, 15 employees. That's very different than a global company.
Yeah.
And so it was just, I had a great opportunity to just see things from a different perspective. And the number of people that you could learn from was just amazing.
Right.
It was a lot of fun. I love learning new things and I love being challenged. I love encountering problems that people haven't been able to solve and figure out how are we going to solve this in a different way. And so I had the opportunity to look at that from a different lens from with inside the company. And it was an opportunity for me. I'd been on one side of the fence where I saw lots of opportunities, and now I was on the other side where I could actually go and make them happen.
Nice.
So it was a lot of fun. I was there for 12 years, and I had a blast.
Nice. What do you meet the most about having your own business?
You know what? I actually don't think that I miss very much, and I think that's because if you are able or fortunate enough to be able to work at a company where you are not only enabled to but encouraged to use an entrepreneurial mindset and run your area of the business, or run the commercial area of a business, or be able to use your entrepreneurial creative talents and ideas in a job, you aren't missing that. And I think if I would have gone from a role where I had my own business and I liked doing it a certain way, and then I went to a large company and I couldn't be as creative, I couldn't be as entrepreneurial, I think that would have not worked.
Yeah.
I think it was the fact that I went somewhere where I could be entrepreneurial and I could make a difference and be able to make an impact and see your fingerprints on all kinds of things. So I think I don't think that I lost any of my entrepreneurial opportunity.
Sure.
I just did it in a different platform.
Yeah, in a different context.
Yes,
But it's the same engine. So throughout your career, as you get new challenges, you see new opportunities, you see new things, I will think that you need to get equipped with new tools. You need to be growing. You need to be learning. How have you equipped yourself to, make progress and keep growing as a professional?
I think there's a few things that I do that help me keep learning. I mean, obviously coming from one industry and going into another, going from software into construction, and it's, even though there's a huge technology component, I mean, it's a different industry. I think being really connected to the market is really, really important. So spending a lot of time in the field, which obviously has been challenging with COVID. You've had to get creative in how you engage in the field. But being able to go out and meet with our clients and meet with partners and go to job sites, you learn so much from every conversation. I mean, it's amazing. This week is, we've kind of been in back-to-back meetings all week, and it's great to see people face to face, hear about their experiences, and learn from them. So I think that is the best feedback, is that real conversation and where you can go when you're sitting in front of someone face to face. Sure. I mean, I think there's always, I love reading, and I think lots of times people know exactly, it's like you're reading a book and then you're telling people about whatever you're reading. So you're like, oh, I have this new idea that just came from this book. So I think reading is good. Obviously, there's so much content online now, being able to look at, what are the latest trends, what's going on in the industry. So I think it's a combination of a number of different things. We've got some conferences coming up that help give you a different perspective on the industry. And I think it's just continually going and making sure that you're pushing yourself.
Yeah. What do you think is one of your, most impressive skills as a professional? What are you really good at?
Oh, that is a really good question. I mean, I think that I believe that every business is a relationship business. So I think sometimes people will think about, okay, these industries are more relationship focused. These ones are about products. It's like, no, they're all about relationships, every industry. Yeah. So I think I have a passion for building strong relationships. And I think that's, it's something that I love to do. And I think through that, you do a lot of listening, you do a lot of engaging, you do a lot of, changing a process in order to be able to react to what you're hearing. And so I think on the relationship building side, that's something that I love to do, that I like to think that I'm pretty good at.
Yeah.
I guess someone could challenge me on that. But I love that. I think it's really important. And I think it's, at the end of the day, I think that people do business with people they like and trust. Yep. And I think you need to build trust, and trust is built over time and by building relationships and proving that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And so I love doing that. I love earning people's trust and being able to accelerate business opportunities because of that. Yeah.
Tell me about your role today with DIRTT, and if you can also give me a brief overview of who DIRTT is, and how long have you been with them and in the product in general?
Sure, absolutely. So I've been with DIRTT since September of 2019. So and it has been the fastest couple years of probably of my life. It's gone by very quickly. DIRTT stands for Doing It Right This Time, and it's really looking at a new way of building. And it's modular prefab construction, and we have a number of factories across North America. And essentially, we're doing prefab construction. We're leveraging our own proprietary technology, which is a software called ICE. And it gives you the ability to design exactly what you want before you actually take it to production. Gives you the opportunity from a virtual reality standpoint to be able to tour your space and go, oh, that doesn't feel quite the way that I thought it would. Can we move this wall over here? I don't like that conference room. It's not big enough. And so you can actually see your space brought to life, which is, for me, I'm not I don't look at a set of plans and be like, oh yeah, that looks great. I like to experience the space. And so that's a huge benefit. So in my role as Chief Commercial Officer at DIRTT, I head up the sales, marketing, partner experience and partner success area, and then client experience, which is everything from, when we're engaging with clients in the field, what that experience looks like, to the entire life cycle of a client. Where do we do very well? Where do we need to continually make improvements? And so those are kind of the four big areas that I focus on.
That sounds like a lot of work.
It is not a small amount of work. Yeah. It's a lot of fun though.
So how do you set yourself up to make that happen? Do you have a team and you distribute, certain type of roles and assignments, and how do you keep track of the progress?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So each of the four areas that I just talked to you about, so I have someone that heads up sales, someone else that heads up marketing, someone that's heading up our client experience, and then partner success. So there's leaders in each of those areas that really specialize. And then I have someone who brings it all together as it relates to the numbers from an operational standpoint. So they, at the beginning of the year, we're going into the year with a set of objectives and goals that we've been very clear about, SMART goals. Like we want to make sure that they're really clear. What does success look like? I always try and tell people, it's great for us to set a goal, but I don't want to leave anything. I don't want to leave anything to question as to whether or not you've been successful. You never want to get to the end of the year and say, well, I don't think you really achieved that goal. And they're like, well, I think I did. So it's always about what are the outcomes that you're trying to deliver, and making sure that we're set up to deliver on those. So every quarter we're doing a check-in on our annual objectives. We're making sure that we're on track. We're looking for where we have potential gaps, and we're sharing that with the business. So it's all about having a plan and then continually measuring yourself against the plan.
Yeah. So what do you think is the biggest competitive advantage of DIRTT in the marketplace of construction?
Yeah, I think it's I think there's a number of things that are very compelling. I think one of the things that we certainly obviously hear a lot about right now is around speed to market. So as people are coming out of COVID and they're looking to get back into their space and they want their space to be different than it was before COVID, it's how fast can you help us with our space? And they don't want conventional construction. Obviously, there's a lot of variability as it relates to costs and schedule, and they don't want any of those unknowns. They want to know what's it going to cost and when are you going to come in. And so that cost certainty and schedule certainty are huge, especially right now.
Yeah. I think I always say that time is more valuable than money. And I think that's what you guys are selling.
Yeah, it really is. And I think that when people look at the value of being in their space, and I mean, for some industries, it's easier to quantify than others. I mean, it's the value of people being back in their office versus the value of opening up a wing of a hospital. It's like, the healthcare system can usually say, okay, if I have these patient rooms available, I'm going to be, able to make this much from a revenue perspective on a daily or weekly or monthly basis. So it's easy for them to know what it looks like getting in earlier.
Yeah.
When you're looking at productivity of your people, sometimes it's a little bit more, they're like, well, if we get in a month earlier, what does that look like? Especially after people have been working from home for a while. So we work hard to make sure that they understand what that value is of their time. But it definitely comes down to time right now.
Sure. The other thing that I see as an architect is just, that concept of, dynamic or flexible, movable architecture. Because architecture by nature, it's been forever, you design the building, it is what it is, and you use it for many years, and you may renovate it, but there is these dumb elements in a space, and that's it. What you guys are offering is the idea to reconfigure that space.
Absolutely.
No,
yeah.
it doesn't have to be the same way. You can make it look different. There are many ways to get to that point. I had a lot of fun yesterday when we were touring the plant, and just to see it make it happen, man, I was so impressed by the technology.
It is amazing.
That's really high-end technology.
It is,
how fast it is. As I watched that, I was even thinking, the people who makes these machines, oh my gosh, who are they? Because I want to meet them.
Yes.
Because at some point you need to design the machine in your own brain. Sketch it out.
Yeah.
At some point becomes this great facility where everything is clean, it's coming out fast, and now you're coming up into market with a very effective product.
Absolutely.
With great tolerances. The quality, you can see it there in how those things are being made.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a good point. I mean, people definitely, I think that flexibility, it's always been important, but it's especially important now, because I think before people would say, well, here's what I need in my space for the next 3 to 5 years. Now people have realized that everything can change in the blink of an eye, and they don't know what they need. And, one of our founders, Jeff Gosling, I think it was during my interview process, actually, he told me the story about, if you design for what you needed today, for only what you need today. Imagine if you're designing your house and you're building a house for what you need today, and you just got out of college. You need like a 1-bedroom studio, but you'd never build for what you need today. You're trying to anticipate, okay, well, probably down the road I'll get married, then we'll have some kids, and then I'll want to sell it, and then if I need an extra bedroom. Like, you're trying to anticipate all these possible configurations of what the future could look like.
Yep.
And you're not building for exactly what you want today.
Sure.
So you're either building for today or the future, but you're not doing both. And what DIRTT gives you the ability to do is say, okay, I'm going to build for what I need today, knowing that in 6 months or a year or 5 years, I can completely change what that environment looks like, and I can adapt for what I need tomorrow. And it's really important, because we just don't know what we're going to need tomorrow at this point.
Yeah, I think the next iteration of the product, and that was part of what I was thinking yesterday when I was looking at those machines and robots making things happen, is when you want to reconfigure your space, you have some interface or dashboard, and you just click a button and the space will reconfigure itself. So very user friendly. The customer can do it. You don't have to call anybody.
Absolutely.
It's like pure easy reconfiguration of space.
We have a number of clients now that do that. Like, we have facilities managers that are reconfiguring their own space as the demands of the business change. Like, they're like, they'll end up over a week figuring out what they need in the, what do we need coming up? And over the weekend, they reconfigure, and people come back in on Monday morning. They're like, oh my gosh, this is all changed. And it's like, yep, that's the beauty of it.
That's nice.
And so it's that really empowers them to always be close to what it is they need now, instead of having this gap that just keeps growing and your space becomes less and less like you want it and what you need. It's always your ability to make minor adjustments and turn the space into exactly what you need for today.
Yeah.
We'll be right back with more from the Power of Design podcast.
The Power of Design podcast is brought to you by OSA Studio, a multidisciplinary design firm focused on creating impactful experiences through the power of design. We partner with our clients to create buildings, interior spaces, brands, and strategies that help you deliver a successful project. As a minority-owned firm, we are committed to building a diverse platform of curious and driven design professionals so we can together pursue our full potential. For more information, please visit us at www.osastudio.com.
What about integration of technology within the product? Because the product it's a wall. You can house a lot of components in it. Is there anything that you guys are working on, or technologies that digital technologies that will be integrated with the product?
Yeah, we have embedded technology today. I think one of the things that we've been talking about is the role that technology plays as people return to work after COVID, and what kind of environments they want to work in. I think that when we we look at flexible work environments or even a hybrid work model, there's going to be some subset of people that are working from home or are working in a flexible way, and a subset of people that are in the office. So when you think about technology, they want technology that integrates everybody, so no one feels like they're being left out. So it's not like the people at home don't have a seat at the table or the people in the office have an advantage. That's not what people want at all. So how do you build the technology into your environment so it's so everybody is on the same playing field? And I think I was in a diversity panel a little while ago, and they talked about how interesting it's been when all of these Zoom meetings or team meetings where people have been in an environment where everybody has the same amount of real estate. Like everyone's box is the same size.
Yeah.
And so it's how do you keep that going when you start to get into this hybrid model? So embedded technology in our spaces and in our walls is critical for the future, because technology is just, we're so reliant on it now for how we work that it's a must have.
Yeah. What do you think is the biggest challenge your clients are facing today?
I think one of the biggest challenges our clients are facing is, I think it's around, and this is going to sound weird, but their ability to predict the future. They feel a need, like, I need to know what's going to happen for the next 5 years so I can design a space that is not obsolete in 6 months. And they feel the weight of needing to predict the future.
Right.
And you shouldn't need to predict the future to be able to build your space.
Yeah.
And so I think it's hard. I mean, it's extremely challenging for them to be able to figure that out. I think it's also hard, they're trying to figure out, how do we bring people back and return to work in a way that works for everybody. And I think that's also a challenge, because you're also trying to make decisions on an unknown environment or an unknown workplace. So I think it's about predicting the future. They're trying to predict the future. It doesn't matter what industry that's in. It's the future of education or healthcare or just the workplace in general. It's just that is a lot of pressure to take on.
Yeah. What do you think is the future of the design and construction industry in general, and what role will DIRTT play in that future?
Yeah, I mean, I think that in the design industry, I think that there's certainly a lot of demand as it relates to people want environments that are inviting and differentiated, that have people wanting to come back. So whether you're at a hospital or a healthcare system and you want people that if they're coming to get well, you have an environment they want to get well in. Mm-hmm. If you're in the workplace, they say, I'd rather not work from home. I'd rather go into the office because I love the environment. And so I think when you look at the future of design, they're trying to design spaces that are compelling for people to want to leave their house to go to, or want to go and choose one healthcare system over another because of that environment. And so I think that design challenge, if you will, is how do you create a space that people love going to, where there's the right balance of quiet time, or, it doesn't matter if you're in a healthcare environment or a school or workplace, you need some quiet time. And then there's time when you want to collaborate and engage with others. And so a lot of those design elements are becoming more important today.
Yeah, I think part of that experience of space is going to be greatly impacted by 3D printing at a large scale. When you can 3D print walls, buildings, that's coming. The other part to me is the virtual reality world.
Yes.
Because we're really you experience a space when you're in there.
Absolutely.
And when I think about the Matrix movie, that doesn't sound crazy.
No, it doesn't.
It might be very real that somebody rather lives in a virtual world.
Yes.
They're gonna get all these senses, and they design their own experiences. So that's an interesting thing that I think is going to impact a lot of what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for us, VR has always been such an important part of what we do, because you're trying to, as much as possible, allow people to experience the space before they're in there, because you don't want them to get in and say, well, I didn't think it would be like this. It's like, oh, that's now an issue. Now you've got a whole bunch of extra money you need to spend to get the space to where you want it to be, which no one wants.
Yeah, I'm excited about VR technology. I started using it about 5 years ago as an architect. And it's been a game changer, because I think it's too much to ask a person to look at a floor plan and say, this is gonna be your space or your home, and you're like imagining, you don't know what's in their brain.
Absolutely.
You know,
and
you
I can
just-
tell you, I never could look at a floor plan
Yeah.
and get that. Like I'd look at a set of drawings and be like, I don't know. That's why I would never want to build a
Yeah.
house, because I have no idea. And
Yeah.
so when I came to DIRTT, and it's like, okay, I'm looking at these plans and I'm like, well, I don't know what that's going to look like. They're like, here, put on this headset.
Yeah.
And you put on it and you get to walk through it. You're
Right.
like, okay,
Yeah.
this is totally different. Now
yeah.
I understand. And you can make decisions. We just redid our space in Chicago, and you make decisions based on a set of plans, but then when you actually go walk through it in a VR setting, you're like, oh, well, why did we put that room there? Like that room should actually be shifted over because we're blocking this. But you don't see it the same way on a set of plans. So it changes the decisions. It allows you to make smarter decisions. And the more that you can leverage technology to do that, the better.
Yeah, I think you really hit the point on the decision-making point from an architect point of view. We're helping our clients make decisions. When they experience this space in VR, decisions are fast, because they see it immediately. I like it, I don't like it, let's do this, let's do that. And, with the ability to add materials, lighting, it's a whole immersive experience, and it really accelerates the decision-making process.
And you make better decisions. You're getting closer to what you really want because you have a different perception of the space, which is amazing.
Yeah. The other thing that I think is going to be huge is once we start going to Mars and going to other planets, we're going to have to build there, and we're going to have to use very efficient systems and pre-engineered systems. I think is what's gonna work better. You bring all the material, or you bring a 3D printer down there and start printing. But I think all those efficiencies and industrialized processes are the ones that are gonna create those opportunities to create spaces for human somewhere else.
Well, and I think it's it's a really good point, because you can't drive down the street to Home Depot when you're on a different planet. I mean, you really have to be deliberate about what you want. And I think that at that point, sustainability means one thing when we're on this planet, and I think we talk about sustainability in day-to-day lives, but then you still see landfills full of garbage and waste, and you see construction throwing out all these materials. And when you think about going and starting fresh on a new planet, it's like, what does sustainability really mean when you're starting from zero? And I think that plays a whole different role, because you don't want to do what potentially we've done here, which is then changes the conversation again.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your career, where you are today, your role as a mentor, helping younger professionals. What advice will you give, a young professional who wants to get into, could be any industry, but they want to, make progress, keep growing, achieve a certain level of success?
Yeah, I think I think that I encourage a lot of two-way mentorships. So I think there's if you see someone who's doing what you want to do, if you're younger and you have that vision ahead, how do you go and find someone who's doing what you want to do in 10 years and say, hey, I want to get to where you are. I'd love the opportunity to be mentored by you, and I'd love to be able to share some ideas and get some perspectives from you. I encourage that, but I always encourage the reverse mentoring as well, because there's so much to be learned from the next generation. So I always find it's great when people are looking for tips on how they can accelerate their career, or how do I build a career development plan? But I'm like, how do we learn from you as well? Because you're coming in with a fresher perspective. You've, maybe there's some areas that you're not jaded in, that others that have been doing it for a while or they have a little bit of a different lens on it. And so I think one of the things that I encourage folks to do is to get a mentor. Somebody could be someone from completely out of the industry, or someone who does what you want to do in the future really well, and start working with them. And I mean, a good mentor is not just somebody who gives you some light, fluffy advice. It's someone who speaks the truth and sometimes has a tough conversation about, where you're really at and where you need to work on yourself, versus everything's rosy and keep going, keep up the good work.
Yeah, it's that balance. I'm very impressed by, very young people, even in their 20s. And maybe it's probably because they've been interacting with technology all their life since they're very young. They're really fast thinkers and very fast learners. And I'm very impressed by that. There are certain things you learn with experience, but I think there's some things that, the younger you are, and I will blame it in technology, your brain is exercising, since you're little.
Yeah,
And they're very agile thinkers.
absolutely. There's, you think about the fact that there's, very young children, they can pick up an iPad and they can just use it. Like they just know how it works, and they know how to, and it's just like, oh my goodness, I can't even, obviously we didn't have iPads when I was young, but it's so amazing how well versed they are. It's like a language to them that they just understand. It's just how the world works.
Yes, I have 3 children. My youngest is 4, but he's been using technology, since he was probably 1.5. And I've been always so impressed by, he likes certain YouTube videos and he doesn't know how to read or write, but he finds the videos.
That's amazing.
And I don't know if that's just the user interface for YouTube Kids is just so intuitive that somehow they get there, but he can use it. And he memorizes passwords, like he knows my phone password, and he calls my wife or my son from my phone, just looking at the pictures.
That is amazing.
Like you don't need much. They just
at
know
4.
how to use it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's mind blowing.
That is. You're like, oh my goodness. It's like that generation and the robots. Oh my goodness. There's so much.
Yeah.
So much brilliance ahead.
Yeah. Jennifer, how does the power of design impact who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I think it's I think, and similar, this is kind of where this bridge is between what I did before in my previous career and what I'm doing now. Is previously I think the numbers and the financials would often tell the story of a business and what's happening in the business. And I've come to appreciate the fact that a space can do the same thing and design can do the same thing. So when you walk into a building, what story is the space telling you, and what are they trying to convey about who they are and what's important to them? And I think there is so much opportunity to bring a brand or a vision or values to life through the space that you design.
Yeah.
And so I think it's so, I've just become to so appreciate the impact that design can have on the experience of everybody who walks into the space. And so I think it can tell the story. It can tell a story. And so I think, working with someone who has the ability to help you tell your story and design a space that tells your story and kind of punctuates your values is so important.
Yeah. My podcast is The Power of Design. And my premise is that, we're all designers. Like, you design with numbers. Part of the problem, I think, is just the definition of design. Some people think design is artistic expression. Mm-hmm. And they associate it with that. But you can design a profitable business plan. You can design a contract. You can design many things. It's not just something that is visually appealing. That's one way to design, but we're all designers.
Yeah.
It's the same idea of creativity that some people say, oh, no, I'm not creative. We're all creative.
Yeah.
We all have brain and heart and ideas, and if we exercise it, we are all creative.
Right. They just look different from person to person, what their creative side looks like, but you're right. It's true. And we are all designers.
And once you said you're not creative, guess what? You're not going to create anything.
Yes.
Because you already believed it.
Yes. Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
Power of thinking the right way, for
sure.
sure.
Yeah. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much. This is one of 4 podcasts that I'm doing when I'm only talking to women. Diversity and inclusion are a big topic for me. I was a first-generation immigrant. So I'm very thankful for your presence here. I really admire what you're doing. I'm very impressed and inspired, and I look forward to staying connected.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity. I've really enjoyed the conversation, and I appreciate you bringing me on your podcast.
Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Power of Design podcast. Remember to rate and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Find out more about Jack and Osa Studio at osastudio.com and follow us on Instagram at The Power of Design Podcast. Thank you.